This was in your work. It's called the Emerging Tapestry, and frankly, much of what I want to do here is just to tell you what's going on the agency level and in the churches and in the general church of trying to address some of the needs that you've been hearing about and that we've been talking about. I have passed out at having passed out the Millennium Goals, and I had a good conversation with the woman about the UN, and I want you to know that in my estimation, the United Nations, the whole concept of it is like a vision of hope, that someday we can actually work together as a global group of folks. And there's no question in my mind that no organization is even remotely perfect, and that would mean every organization. But the United Nations Development Goals, if you'll pass those out, and you can give me one, I didn't get that. You'll see immediately the tie to the four focus areas. I'm not even sure I knew exactly how clearly tied it was to that, but when you see the goals that were set for the millennia, you'll see at least what the intention of that group is and how we as a denomination in some aspects of the United Nations are working with them. They have a website that will tell you how we're doing on all of these, and some we're doing better than others. But you'll see immediately where the United Methodist Church has tied in and also expanded the goals. I think the David sites all have that list, am I right? Just nod your head. All right, thanks. As you've been hearing about the four foci for the denomination, these are the Millennium Goals: eradicate extreme hunger and poverty, achieve universal primary education. A conversation that I heard about the book, one of the things that they're saying, and they are exactly right, that primary education is if you educate the children young, and if you educate the mothers of the children typically, you find a tremendous add-on in terms of their being able to pull themselves out of poverty. So primary education and universal primary education is one of the keys that the United Nations has seen. Promote gender equality and empower women. You heard the same thing from the book, McGovern's book. Reduce child mortality, improve maternal health, combat HIV, AIDS, malaria, and other diseases, ensure environmental sustainability, and develop a global partnership for development. If you look at all of those goals, the only one that isn't particularly included in our foci is really goal number 8. The others all are rolled in, and I don't know where the four foci came from, but I also know that some of it has been worked through some of these millennial goals of the United Nations. I think I told you about the 7% reduction from that if we could, it wasn't 1% of our military spending, and it wasn't just our military spending, it was the world's military spending. 7% could feed everyone, and 1% would provide schooling for all the children in the world. But what we're looking at this time is to talk about those things that are hopeful and possible. I have my husband who tells me many things, and I am sure he got this from somewhere, and I had a conversation with one of you. He says everything in excess, even virtue, is toxic. When you really think of what we're trying to accomplish, we're not trying to accomplish one goal in excess. We're trying to accomplish a rounded understanding of what it is we're supposed to do and supposed to be. What's happening in the United Methodist Church through your apportionment dollars, and another one of you came up and said, don't forget, we're paying our apportionments. We're also participating in Ministry of the Poor by doing that. And I want to tell you in what way, by paying your apportionments, you are participating in Ministry with the Poor. The Global Health Initiative, which works with the United Nations Foundation and with the Gates Foundation through the United Methodist Church. I talked a bit about the Nothing But Nets campaign. I want to tell you a little bit about a woman who works at the General Board of Global Ministries. Her name is Shannon Trilly. She's, I don't know her age, maybe 30. She is one that is on the front lines of working with the Global Health Initiative from UMCOR's perspective. Shannon has taught me so much because the way Shannon has helped me revalue what we do as a church. She says, you know why the United Nations wants to work with the United Methodist Church? In Africa in particular, where is the major initiative for Nothing But Nets? And I could think of all sorts of reasons why the United Nations might want to work with us. She said, I think the main reason they want to work with us is we have inroads everywhere on the continent. There may not be a road to a village, but there's a community of faith. We have on-the-ground presence. And the United Nations, a more political body, needs the help of a more faith-based body in order to meet the needs of those people in those very isolated areas. Shannon is a delight because whenever you get too focused on thinking about all the problems and all the arguments and the different theologies and the different understandings of who should do what, Shannon says you need to just zoom out. She says you need to zoom out and look at the big picture and try to remember why you're doing what you're doing. There's no one way to do it. There's no one right theology. There's no one right political understanding. You zoom out, you work together where you can, and you remember that the reason you're doing your work is for those people in the villages who need the health care, who need the sustenance, and who need to survive. She isn't much of a churchgoer, Shannon, but I tell you, she's taught me a lot about what we as people of faith are to be about as we look at these overwhelming questions that face us. Occasionally, we need to zoom into the local and see exactly what it is we can do. And then occasionally, we need to zoom out and get the bigger picture and recognize why we're doing this in the first place. The Ministry with the Poor, through the General Board of Global Ministries, we work in collaboration with all the agencies, but I want to tell you about one of the goals that we set for ourselves, and one of the goals that I think will come to fruition in 4 years. You can hold me accountable at least to doing something in the next 4 years. We have a goal that talks about setting up 5 model projects where we will have a way to determine through objective criteria if we are actually doing anything positive, if we are actually making a difference. And one of our goals is to set up 1 project in the United States and 4 projects around the world, 1 in Africa, 1 in the Philippines, 1 in Latin America, and 1 in Eastern Europe. And you need to know that what's fun about what the General Board is trying to do at this point is that they're not trying to say, here's a project, we need to fix everything in that little area about poverty. They're looking at each project through a particular lens of poverty. The one in the United States is the one most defined, and you may be the first group that's going to hear where it's going to be because they just made that decision. It's in North Carolina. It's a group called Circles that is actually verifiably moving people out of poverty. So the lens through which that model project is going to be seen is the elimination of poverty for a small segment of the population. The goal is that we take these model projects, we put them in a culturally sensitive way, and we duplicate them. That we have these duplicable goals and models that will help us figure out what the heck we can do to help rid and eliminate poverty. The second placement is in Africa, and that placement's going to have a particular lens of global health. It's going to be a lens that says we're going to work with the issues of health and poverty here. Now, we may do other things around the edges, but this is what we're going to do here. The one that we're doing in the Philippines is going to be on human rights and advocacy issues. Because advocacy, changing the systems that create and contribute to poverty, is also another way to do it.